In today's video, we're going to take a look at estimating sums. So remember, a sum is the answer in which we're adding. And then if we look at today's vocabulary of estimate, it means we're going to find an approximate number, not the exact number. So we're going to make kind of like a good guess by using some rounding. So as I said a moment ago, we're going to use our skill of rounding to find out about how much the sum of two numbers is. Let's say, for instance, I have a problem that looks similar to this. It says, look at the information in the table. Do the two sun bears together weigh more than the female black bear? So I'm going to pick out those important numbers that I need to know. So it looks at the two sun bears, which means I have 78 and 95. And then it wants to know if I put those together, is that going to be more than the female black bear, which is right there at 215. So I'm going to use those numbers 78 and 95, and I'm going to do an estimate to see if it would be about more than the female black bear. So I have the number 78 and the numbers 95. Remember when I'm rounding that I'm going to start at that biggest place value, and then I'm going to look at the next place value closest to it, the next smallest place value, and I'm going to see, is it 5 or above? Then I'm going to round up. If it's 4 or below, then I'm going to round down. So looking at this, 78, I see it's an 8 in that ones place, and so I'm going to round up. So 78 rounds to the number 80. And then if I'm looking at 95, again, I want to round to that nearest 10, that largest number, and then I'm going to look at the ones place. So 5 and above means I round up. Rounding up would mean it would be 100. So I'm going to add those two numbers together. 80 plus 100. That makes it really easy for me to add quickly. It's going to be 180. So estimating helps get me about the right answer and see if maybe if I'm doing the math or before I do the math, what a good about approximate answer might be. So the weight of, the weight of the black bear then would be greater than the weight of the sun bears put together because I rounded up for both of those. So if I know this number is going to be just a little bit higher than the actual number, then it's still going to be less than what that black bear weighs. So that's kind of a practical way that, or an example of when you might use estimating as you are adding sums. Let's try one together. So this one's going to ask us to round to the nearest 10 to estimate the sum of 28 and 46. So again, let's take a look at what we have. We have the number 28, and we have the numbers 46. So think to yourself what you would round 28 to. Am I going to round it up, or am I going to round it down? Again, I'm looking at the nearest 10, so I'm going to use the ones. So what would that be? Right, it's going to round up to 30. Then I'm going to look at the next number is 46. So again, at that tens place, then I'm going to use the ones place to help me. Am I rounding up or down? And since I'm rounding up, it's a 6, which means that's rounding up. I would round it to the number 50. This makes it nice and easy for me. 28 plus 46 is kind of tricky to do quickly, but 30 plus 50 helps me if I'm estimating, I can get about the right answer. So 30 plus 50 is 80. This next one, when I show you, I want you to do it on your own, pausing the video and then press play to see how you would do it. So this one's again rounding to the nearest 10, and we're going to estimate 18 plus 43. So pause the video and see if you can figure out what numbers you would round those to, and then what the sum would be, the estimated sum. So now that you've done it on your own, let's see if your thinking matches mine. So to the nearest 10 means I'm going to look at this tens place. I need to look at the ones place to help me. It's an 8, so I know that that would round up. So, oops, I got ahead of myself a little bit. 18 rounds to the number 20. My next one is 43. So if I have 43, I'm going to look at the ones place to round to the nearest 10. And that's going to round down because it's a 3 that's lower, 4 or lower. So it's going to be rounded down to 40. When I add those together, 20 plus 40 equals 60. So I know when I find the actual sum, it's going to be about 60. Let's take a look at one more example just to make sure. This time, actually, instead of the nearest 10, I want you to do to the nearest 100 to estimate the sum of 175 plus 117. So pause that video and see if you can figure out the estimated sum, then press play when you're ready. Now that you've had a chance to do it on your own, let's take a look. If I'm doing the hundreds place, that means I'm going to look at the tens place to round. It's a 7, so I know that rounds up. So I know that 175 rounds up to the nearest 100, which is going to be 200. Then I also have the number 117. Again, in my tens place, I have a 1, so that's going to make me round down. So 117 is going to round down to 100, 200 plus 100, real easy for me to see, is 300. So I know that 175 plus 117 is about 300. So this can be a really good tool to see if you need to know kind of an estimate or about what an answer might be when you're adding. And hopefully this is a good tool for you as you continue in the future.